Hi guys, welcome back to the next part of the series. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the retopology basics, and I wanted to cover this basis again before going into the full retopology process because retopology can be very daunting. People think that retopology will require a lot of time investments and a lot of things for all of the different parts, and it's actually not that bad. So let's start with this piece, for instance. If we select this piece, you're going to see that this piece is, first of all, really high in topology processes. So every time we start with the retopology of whatever piece we want to do, we want to try to make sure that we are as optimized as possible. Now, as you can see, this piece is symmetrical. All of the detail that we sculpted and everything is perfectly symmetrical. So one of the rules of thumb that we're going to be using is if the piece is symmetrical, we need to have a middle line going down the center. The next thing that we need to think about a retopology is the silhouette. The most important thing about a retopology is the silhouette of the object. So if we want to create a retopology for this thing, we need to make sure to hit the big points of all of the elements right here. So this means that this guy is going to be really low poly, actually, because we have a very straight silhouette. You don't need to worry about this hit right here, like this, like borders that we have on this area. Those are not important because we're going to be catching that information in our normal map. Okay, so let's go through the way we would attack or process something like this. First, I would change the name to make sure that I have a clean nomenclature. So I'm gonna call this handle hook and then underscore high. That's gonna be the name that we're gonna be using. We're gonna be using underscore high and underscore low to tell a blender and eventually Substance which part is the high poly and which part is the low poly. Then we're going to apply transforms. Very important that we apply all transforms so that the information here is clean. We also need to go to the modifiers and, if possible, decimate this so that we can have a lower version of the high poly without destroying all of the details. So I'm going to go to decimation right here. We're going to decimate. And let's bring this all the way down to 0.1. I believe this one should be more than enough. So I'm going to hit enter. And there you go. As you can see, we get 23,000 triangles for our low poly version, which is more than enough for what we want to have. Once I apply this, now this is going to be like my finalized high poly version. So once I'm happy with this high poly version, the next thing that I need to do is I need to, of course, jump into our Retopoflow. So I'm going to select this object, Retopoflow, and say add active. This will launch the Retopoflow interface, and I'm going to be able to start working. In this one, we're going to talk about the polypen because it's a very simple element, and it's a lot easier if we work with the polypen. So for the polypen, the only thing that we need to do is we need to press Control, add a point on the next section where we want to create the silhouette, at another point right there, and finish our little square. And that's it. That's all we have to do. Then I'm going to go from this last point to the middle line and down. And then from here to the middle line and down. And then from here to the middle line and down. Now, small pause right here. You can see that on this particular position, a triangle might be a better idea, right? Because we have a very strong change in silhouette right there, and if we just leave this with a single point, it might not capture that properly. So I'm gonna go back, and instead of going all the way down, I'm gonna stop right there, so that we can create a small little square right there. Look at that, and then another one very similar right there. And now from here to here, we can just create a triangle. So if we successfully captured that triangle shape right there without really adding too many points to the rest of the element. Then we're going to go all the way over here. Again, we have another triangle right there, so we can use the same thing. Now here, I'm going to click outside, click that point, and then continue drawing because it was attaching itself to another point. There we go. And then from that point up there, and as you can see, this is not even a triangle, this is kind of like a square, right? So we can do something like that. Now, if you want to merge two triangles, you can do that by selecting both of them. And I believe the tweak tool, I don't remember if we have auto, no, we don't. But we can also go outside into the normal mode, like if we exit Retopoflow, and we select that one, which is press M and collapse. And that's gonna collapse to the center. It might not get to the proper position, but if we go back to Retopoflow, right here, and we just move this around, it should snap itself to the surface of the object again. There we go. So let's go back to our polypen, click again, Control, click there, or let's click down and then up, and then from here, Control all the way up to the point, and there we go. Over here, we're gonna go from that point there and all the way up. from here to here, we can create like a triangle right there. And then from here, we go there, there, and there. For instance, here, it makes sense to have like a triangle. I'm just gonna like merge those right now. I'm gonna explain what we're gonna do in just a second. And we can go all the way over there and over there. This point right here, we can move it. Just click and move, click and drag, and that's it. We can go up there, and there we go. And then from the top here, we can go control click to the corner and there. Control click to the corner and there. Control click to the corner up there. Control click to the corner up there. Click corner there. And finally click corner and there. Perfect. Now, as you can see, we have a couple of issues on the topology side of things. Don't worry, we can fix them real quick. So if we go over here to the handle hook height and we like hide it, you're gonna see that we have a couple of holes. We're still in edit mode, so I'm gonna go into edge mode. And you guys know that if we select two edges and press F, we're gonna just fill that in. Same for this triangle right here. We can F and fill that in, and grab this one and F and fill that right in. So the cool thing about the Retopoflow, as you just saw right there, is that it's very, very easy to create this element. Let's just merge those to center, collapse, or merge at center. There we go. And that's it. Now, if we want to add a little bit more detail to our object, because I can see here, for instance, the handle, the borders of the handle are not as sharp, right? They're not like 90-degree angles. Well, the cool thing is we can actually add that detail through Retopoflow or through here very easily. I'm going to go to edge mode, and for instance, all of these edges right here, not that one because that's the triangle. Maybe with that one, that's fine. And we're just going to grab all of these edges, this one right here, this one right here, this one right here, this one right here, this one right here. And all of those edges, we're going to bevel, okay? So we're going to go to bevel, and we're going to give them a small little bevel, just a simple bevel. And that bevel is going to allow me to capture that roundness very nicely. This is a very important principle that I want to talk about. When we have a 90-degree angle right here, imagine we have like the dice, right? And then the low poly of that dice is very round, okay, like this. What ends up happening is on the baking process, this face right here should raise upwards, and this face right here should raise sideways. So all of this section right here won't really capture this corner, and we're gonna get a really like bad bake. However, if we add a little corner, like a little bevel to this area by going right here, what's going to happen now is we're going to have an extra face that's going to shoot raise, and it's going to be able to capture this information from right here. So that's why this like little extra bevel that I just added there will be a really good effect. Now, we still need to take into account all of the rules from modeling, such as angles. We don't want any angles, but as you can see, we really don't have any angles. We do have a weird triangle right there, but again, not that big of a deal. Another thing is the symmetry. You can see that the symmetry right now is completely effed up. So we're going to go to wireframe here. We're going to go to component mode. We're going to grab our little vertices, and all of the vertices here on the center. Let's make sure that we're not grabbing anything that we don't have to. So all of those guys, I'm going to hit scale X0. And then again, if we go to top view, we can turn on our snapping tool with increment absolute grid snap, so that we can do a GX, and that's going to snap perfectly to the center grid. So now, as you can see, we're going to have the low poly version of our hook element. I'm going to grab this guy right here. And as you can see, I'm not sure why we don't have a mirror. We have a displace. The displace is by the way, the displace is the like thing that we're using from Retopoflow. So now that I'm happy, I'm just gonna eliminate this, and I'm gonna eliminate the mirror, and I'm gonna add a new mirror. So add modifier, and we're gonna add a mirror modifier. And as you can see, we get both sides of the element very, very nicely. We get even like the nice little cut right there. That does kind of look like an angle, but as you can see, it's made out of a square and triangle, so it's not an angle. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to apply, right click, and shade smooth. Very important to shade smooth at the very end so that we can get this very, very clean effect. I know right now it looks a little bit weird on the shading aspect or on the shading elements, but as you can see, we are properly capturing all of the silhouette, all of the information from their high poly. So this new element that we have right here that says right now Retopoflow, we're actually gonna rename it so that it's the exact same name as the handle hook, but with the option or the difference of changing this to low. Okay, and that's it. With this done, we have successfully created the low poly version of our hook. Now, I want to include this on this video because I wanna make sure that you guys understand why we're doing this. Even though this is not gonna be the final bake, I'm gonna grab this handle hook right here. I'm gonna say File, Export, FBX, and on the bakes demo folder that we have, I'm gonna call this. This is the only like demo that we're gonna do. We're not gonna repeat this on the next one, but I just want to again make sure that you understand the whole process before we go through the remaining parts of the X. So this is what it's gonna be called hook. I'm just gonna call it hook high for now. FBX and just export selected objects. There we go. And then I'm gonna grab the low element, and for the low one, we actually do need to do something called the UVs. We need to create UVs for this thing. So I'm gonna go to object mode. I'm gonna delete these faces because we're not gonna be seeing them. So let's delete the faces. And in this particular case, the way we're gonna be doing this is we're gonna be doing this in half. So I'm gonna go to edge mode, select all of the edges, and I'm gonna go into UV and use this option called a mark seam. So that will mark a seam. Now I can go to phase mode, select all faces and UV and do this thing called an unwrap. If I go to UV editing now, you can see that we have both sides of the hook ready, okay? So with both sides ready, now I can grab the object again, the low poly object, File, Export, FBX, and we're gonna call this hook low. Again, selected objects only and export the FBX. If we jump really quickly to Substance Painter, I'm going to be able to show you how this bake is going to work perfectly fine. And again, this is going to allow me to show how the cage is going to be projecting these little arrows that we mentioned right here. So I'm going to say File, New. Let's select our hook low. 1024 is fine for this one, and just hit OK. So as you can see, this is our low poly. As you can see, those weird shadings that we had are no longer like visible. We're getting a very nice like silhouette for this hook. And now I'm gonna go to this little croissant thing, which is the baker, and I'm gonna select the high poly of this hook. Say OK, and there we go. So as you can see, we're getting some red elements. Those red elements are, it's the baker telling me, hey, if you do a bake right now, I'm not gonna be able to catch that specific detail. But we can increase the max frontal distance right here, and as you can see, that's gonna inflate the cage so that we don't no longer have any sort of like a red colors. Of course, this part, since we don't have any faces, we're not gonna be able to get anything. So once we're happy there, I can just say bake selected mesh, and as you can see, all of the detail from the high poly is now gonna be baked down onto the low poly. So we have this low poly element that looks very, very cool without having all of the topology. Look at that. Remember I told you that we were gonna catch that right there? The triangle over here, like every single element that we had on our object is being like captured with this thing. And just to like get you guys excited and show you how all of this is gonna work together, let me show you what happens if I add this sort of like a steel gun, like a damage effect to this element. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Like we get this very, very cool texture while still keeping all of the elements right there. We're even gonna have something later on called, let me do it real quick. We're gonna have something called generators. Again, we're gonna cover all of this in the texturing part. And we have this metal edge work generator that's gonna hit all of the edges of our element. And look how nice we can get this to look. Now, the one thing that's gonna be slightly different here is that there will be some elements where, since we're doing this like a symmetrical effect, we actually don't need to bake on both sides because both elements are going to have the exact same UV. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later, okay? With this little demo right here, I just want to show you how the whole, like, again, baking process and retopology basics is going to be working. We're going to create the retopology for our elements. Eventually, we're going to create UVs, and we're going to project all of the elements. Now, this guy right here, the hook and the low poly hook and the high poly hook, they're ready. We got all of the things that we have ready for this guy, and we don't need to do anything else. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a new collection. So I'm going to press M, or just like select this one, M, and I'm going to create a new collection. This is going to be called low polys. Okay. We're going to call them like X_low polys. Hit OK. As you can see, we got the handle hook low right there. And I'm going to grab the handle hook high as well. There we go. Press M. There we go. Press M, new collection, and this one's going to be called X high polys. And hit OK. And one of the things that's going to be helpful with this is I can hide these collections. So I know that once those objects are hidden, that means that they are ready. Again, eventually we're going to redo the UVs for this handle hook glow. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So with that, my friends, we're ready to jump onto the actual like retopology of the different elements. So another thing that I want to mention before we finish this video is that we're not going to be retopologizing every single thing. For instance, these spikes right here, they were not sculpted. These are just simple cones. However, they are a little bit high on poly count, as you can see right here. It's not that bad, actually. 496 triangles is not that bad, but we do need to optimize them a little bit, and we are still gonna have like a low poly and a high poly version. But once we get there, I'll show you how that works. So on the next video, we're gonna work on this 3 parts right here, and this whole chapter is gonna be retopology, my friends. I know that it can be a little bit tedious, but again, try to get your favorite music on the background while you're doing this, because it's a super important process of the game workflow. So that's it for now. I'll see you back on the next video.